Hi, this is Mike, and today is May 6, 2024. I'm coming at you with a pretty quick video today. Just an interesting New York Notary Public story. Another notary got in trouble. New York Notary Public kept notarizing after a license was expired. He didn't bother to renew and changed his stamp expiration date after 2 years and got caught notarizing 3 items. Probably he was doing it for a really long time, probably just started out figuring he'll renew and then got caught up in the lie and turned it into fraud. And I'll tell you what happened. So this is actually a screenshot from the State of New York Department of State Office of Administrative Hearings. That's where they have what's called a tribunal hearing when notaries get in trouble and they decide the fate of your license. And that's not the criminal court where they prosecute for misdemeanors and felonies. That's a separate thing where charges are brought up separately. So this is in the matter of the complaint of Department of State Division of Licensing Services, who's called the complainant against, and then I redacted the person's name, who's going to be called the respondent. And this is the decision that we're reviewing here and reminds us not to get caught up in letting our license lapse. As you recall, you have 6 months to renew your license after it's expired. That's the statute of limitations. After 6 months, you need to, quote, requalify, end quote, which means you got to take the exam again in everyday language. So the complainant was represented by litigation counsel Lawrence Soronen, Esquire, and the complaint alleges that the respondent repeatedly notarized documents for filing in public offices through the use of a fraudulent notary public registration number and stamp. So the attorney for the accused made an application for adjournment by mail. In-person counsel for the respondent sought an adjournment, in other words, to delay it, on the grounds that the respondent is facing criminal prosecution arising out of the same transactions as underlie the complaint herein, and that although he wished to testify in his own defense, to do so might jeopardize his defense in the criminal matter. So, in other words, evidence will be gathered here that will be used again in the criminal matter, which is going to be subsequent to this hearing. So this is all historical. The application for the adjournment was denied. So the state decided, no, we're going to go ahead and have our hearing and deal with the license. So was facing the first New York State administrative hearing, then criminal court. That's what that means. So what the investigation revealed. So the expired commission notary public notarized 3 affidavits of service of process. And affidavits of service of process, I have a lot of experience with that. I was in a law firm for 15 years where I managed the investigation unit and the trial prep and the process servers units. So I would be notarizing these affidavits of service of process, whatever they serve somebody with subpoenas or summonses and complaints, subpoena to appear or subpoena for records called the ducis tecum. They have to be notarized and then filed with the court where, whatever case that pertains to. So he got caught. Probably these were the last 3 he did, affidavits of service of process, using thereon a stamp which indicated that he was still an active notary public qualified in Nassau County, New York, Long Island. So whereas he had never renewed the expired notary public license and had a new fraudulent expiration date, indicating he had renewed 2 years prior to getting caught. So, I guess he was doing this and, just never got around to renewing and then, didn't want to tell his employer and just kept notarizing. So, don't get caught up in why should I renew, right? Why should you? It's $60, just do it, right? Renew. And don't put yourself in this position to get compromised. So, more simply put, in everyday layman's language, he seemed to think that he could just move the expiration date up 4 years, get a stamp and move it up, like when renewing, and that nobody would check. An affidavit of service is exactly the type of thing the opposing attorney might look closely at to find an unacceptable defect in order to win the case. And this is what I said in the last video. You get caught when the attorneys dig deeper, because if they can find something wrong in what the notary did, it can invalidate whatever was notarized and win the case for them. So in this case, the affidavit of service was fraudulent because the notary was committed fraud, and it's thrown out. I should say the former notary, because if that notary license was expired 2 years, that's not even a notary public anymore, all right? You have to requalify. So anyway, the attorney found out, and it got thrown out and could not be reserved to satisfy the statute of limitations, because you have to file these things within a certain amount of time, and then it's too late. You can't serve anymore after a certain amount of time expires. So the affidavit of service are routinely challenged to dig up things like this. So somebody who's doing that for a living should have really known that these affidavits of service are always challenged. My experience was they're challenged, like 25% of the time. So a fake expiration date on a notary stamp, 2 years expired, was fraud and an unacceptable defect. So this is the opinion. This is a screenshot again from the court. Pursuant to Executive Law 135, that's the qualifications to become a notary and have the privileges of notary public as were appointed by the Division of Licensing Services under the jurisdiction of the Department of State, Secretary of State. So it is a misdemeanor for a person to hold himself out as entitled to act as a notary public or to assume or use the title of notary public without having first been so appointed. So through his actions in notarizing affidavits of service while not commissioned as a notary public, the respondent violated that section. So he was brought up on charges under section 135 that we study for the exam. And we go over that extensively in the online exam prep. So besides the violation of Executive Law 135-A, the acting as a notary public by administering oaths without being so commissioned is clearly an act of misconduct, professional misconduct as a state officer, as contemplated by Executive Law 130. So the fact that the misconduct occurred prior to the issuance of the respondent's commission does not insulate him from the imposition of sanctions. By acting without legal authority under the very statute pursuant to which he was subsequently commissioned, the respondent demonstrated a disposition to conduct himself unlawfully and with complete disregard for the standards to which a notary is required to conform. Division of Licensing Services versus D'Alessio 11 DOS 94 is a case study. Or at the very least, if credence is given to his attorney's offer of proof, which of course is not evidence, that the respondent had previously been commissioned as a notary public and had inadvertently failed to renew his commission, to regard his obligations with an unacceptably casual attitude. So he took a cavalier attitude and didn't renew. And I think 2 years is more than failed to renew. His defense attorney tried to say he inadvertently failed to renew. And, my intuition is that initially it was inadvertent and he didn't get around to it or something went wrong. But then he let it slide. But the problem was he went and changed his notary stamp and changed his expiration date, and that was fraudulent. So the bad personal choice results that this individual made. His expired commission was revoked, so he cannot renew or reapply. So the tribunal hearing revoked his expired notary license. So I don't really know how you can revoke something that's expired and no longer, can't be recovered after 6 months. But they revoked it, and he had to mail in the expired card, which they don't even issue cards anymore. They email them to us. He was charged with misconduct as a state officer, and professional misconduct is a Class A misdemeanor. And so he got the misconduct there, but the criminal court has the misdemeanor for the fraudulent stamp. He was convicted of a misdemeanor for doing it 3 times, so he got caught on 3 affidavits of service, probably for the same case. I couldn't see the exhibits in the file I found, so I don't know, but I'm assuming they were probably for the same case they were serving papers on. And the defense attorney found out, right? He challenged them. He may or may not have been sued in civil court for 3 unacceptable defects. So assuming probably the statute of limitations passed and they couldn't reserve them, and somebody lost and somebody had financial damages, and he could be sued in civil court for that. This did not cover that, the documents I got a hold of. So all pretty sad. I don't like telling these stories sometimes, but it's a hard, cold world out there, and we need to hear these things and you know, stay vigilant. So okay, so that's it. That was a pretty quick one. So of course I want people who are up for getting their supplies to support us and get your supplies through us. We have great pricing, right, because of the volume with our members at www.howtobecomeanotaryinny.com. I know a lot of you are up for renewals because renewals are constantly ongoing as we're cranking out people out of our online exam prep, and they're taking the exam weekly for the last 22 years. So you can get notary stamps, seals. Seals are generally not required in New York, but there are a lot of things that do require seals, and it's advisable to just use a stamp and seal on everything when it's not always required. We have this beautiful 8x11 notary wall display that's custom made. It has a black frame or brown, and you can display that on your cubicle with no window where you work and let everybody you work with appreciate what you've gone through. You passed and became licensed in an exam with over a 60% failure rate in New York State, where we have less than 1% of our students reporting failing, a great success. And you can see that at the testimonials on this website, howtobecomeanotaryinny.com. Of course, we're all required now to journal everything we do, whether it's traditional notary or now remote online notary that's electronically stored, and you journal your traditional notary acts in a paper journal. It has to meet certain requirements. One of our students this week canceled her journal order, and she said she can just get a notebook. Well, you have a lot of requirements what has to be in that journal. Maybe I'll do another video on that. And our online notary licensing class is still only $77 with eight months access. We have people that complete it in 1 day and take the exam the next day. I hear that a couple times a week from people that call in and had a great exam experience. So for those of you that are already licensed as a notary, New York traditional notary, you can go ahead and upgrade to Ron, and with Ron you can charge $25 a signature. Of course, you're going to have to subscribe to software and pay, you know, a couple cups of coffee a month for that. Your employer would love it if you can notarize now for the whole country and for even things from foreign countries. As long as you're online from New York State, you can reach out to the whole world. And that's a good business area for people that are going into notary business, get some online real estate. And join the New York Notary Association, where you get this video if you're watching this on YouTube, but a lot more things are in there. And we have a lot of good surprises coming out in that newsletter. We have over 25,000 subscribers in there, and it doesn't cost anything. And of course, the New York Notary exam schedules are recently updated till the end of June. So if you're waiting for that, you can go ahead and go to that link on the website. So any questions, you can call me, Mike, at 347-427-9091. Always just hit extension 1 to avoid the long menu. Anybody who's been a notary and is licensed in New York State and you have questions about procedures at your desk, go ahead and give us a call. We get a couple calls on average every day, sometimes more than others. And a lot of these videos come out of questions people call and ask about. So don't be shy. Give us a call. We love to talk to you and hear how it's going. Okay, so that's it for this newsletter. I had to get this one out a little quicker. Picking my kid up from Virginia Tech, getting her home for the summer where she can start her summer job slinging ice cream cones at an ice cream place and make some extra money for college and help Dad out. So I hope you all have a really great week and be safe out there. We'll see you next time.